Did we just learn why Georgie and Mandy's marriage doesn't last? That's the question Season 2 quietly and maybe intentionally starts answering. Not with a huge betrayal, not with a shocking twist, but with something far more realistic, incompatibility that grows slowly over time. Because if you really look at what Season 2 is doing, it's not building toward an explosion. It's building toward distance. One of the biggest clues is how differently Georgie and Mandy are evolving. Georgie is finding himself. His success in the tire business gives him purpose, structure, and confidence. For the first time in his life, he's not living in Sheldon's shadow or scrambling to prove he's capable. He knows what he's good at. He's proud of what he's building. And that kind of growth changes a person. The problem is that growth isn't happening at the same pace or in the same direction for Mandy. Mandy's journey in Season 2 feels more internal. There are moments where she seems reflective, even restless. She loves Georgie. That part is clear. But love isn't the only thing that determines long-term compatibility. Mandy gave up a version of her life when she committed to Georgie. And as Georgie becomes more confident and independent, it forces Mandy to quietly reevaluate what she wants for herself. That's where the cracks start making sense. There's also the subtle communication gap that keeps widening. Early in their relationship, conflict felt reactive, arguments sparked by stress or outside pressure. In Season 2, the tension feels quieter, more layered. They're not yelling at each other. They're missing each other. Conversations don't always land the way they used to. Apologies feel shorter. Silences feel longer. And here's the key. Neither of them is doing anything wrong. That might be the biggest hint about why the marriage ultimately doesn't last. It's not about failure. It's about misalignment. Georgie is becoming more ambitious, more business-minded, more focused on expansion and stability. Mandy seems to be searching for identity beyond just being a wife and mother. Those paths don't automatically conflict, but they require intentional alignment. And Season 2 suggests they're not always having those deeper conversations. There's also the age and life stage factor that the show has stopped glossing over. When they first got together, the circumstances overshadowed everything else. But now that life is calmer, differences in perspective start surfacing. How they handle stress, how they view long-term plans, how they define security. Those differences aren't dramatic, they're subtle. But subtle differences are often what slowly erode relationships. And if you remember the Big Bang Theory, we already know Georgie has multiple divorces in his future. That throwaway joke now feels less random and more like a roadmap. What Season 2 might be doing is reframing that future, not as recklessness, but as a series of relationships that began with good intentions but couldn't survive long-term growth. If this marriage ends, it won't feel like destiny punishing them. It'll feel like two people who genuinely tried but evolved in ways that didn't fully sync. That's more mature storytelling than a dramatic implosion. What makes it bittersweet is that Georgie is actually becoming the man Mandy needed him to be, just maybe not at the time she needed him to be it. And Mandy is growing too, just in ways that might eventually require space instead of partnership. So, did we just learn why their marriage doesn't last? Season 2 isn't spelling it out, but it's definitely planting the emotional groundwork. Not for heartbreak driven by betrayal, but for the kind driven by quiet realization. And sometimes that's even harder to fix.